Good evening. This is Wendi, Kaaren, and Shelly. And tonight we are discussing the role of free will in the soul's journey, balance of free will and the divine, which I think is going to be really interesting. As we explore this topic, Kaaren will be interacting with her counsel, while Shelly and I will field your questions and pass them on to her. To ask questions, just hop over on in the chat, and we will field them. And remember, this show is being recorded, so enjoy.
Yes. Thank you, Wendi.
Welcome.
This morning when I was doing my prayers, I decided to kind of explore the topic a little bit. And I don't typically do that in the morning, but for some reason today I did. And what really struck me, I mean, the whole thing about free will versus God's will, but what struck me is if that you almost have to start the conversation with detachment, the concept of detachment, and the concept of what is your purpose for your will? So let me explain what I mean. So in detachment, we all are familiar with detachment. Be detached from money, from material things, be attached to spiritual things and good things. But along with that, we need to be detached from outcome and time. So when you are practicing your free will, you are going for a walk every day, and your purpose is, I'm going for a walk every day because I want to lose weight, because I like walking through the park, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But when you kind of let go of what your outcome you think is going to be, you have the free will of going for the walk. But if you allow the things to come to you, like maybe you meet somebody on your walks that you have a great conversation with or a continuing relationship with, or maybe your hips start doing something differently that you didn't know that they could. I mean, there are all kinds of things, and obviously that's a very simple example, but when we make our decisions in our free will, we need to kind of be detached from what we think is going to happen because of it, to allow what Creator wants to happen for it and what's for our highest good. And then so that's detachment quickly. And then from time also, that's another thing, we want to have $1,000 in the bank by next week. We're putting time on that. And the other thing is the purpose for why we're doing things. So I'm living my life. I'm a child. I'm growing up. I'm just kind of managing to navigate. Don't really have any, at least for me, I don't know, other people may be different, but I didn't really have a picture of where I was going or what the purpose of all this was. So at some point in our lives, hopefully, we start thinking about, why am I here? That whole existential crisis thing. Why am I here? Where am I going? What am I doing? What's my purpose? And the degree that you recognize and align yourself with the fact that you are an eternal being and that everything that you do is setting you up for where and what you're going to do when you get out of here. If you're living your life with the purpose of bettering your material self, your social self, your power, your standing in the community, your fame, if those are the things that are driving you, then it's a different, your will is not aligned with God's will. God, Creator, Allah, whatever word you want to use. The what is, source. So the greater degree that you align yourself with Creator's will, the easier and smoother things will happen. So the other factor here that we have to take into consideration is that not one leaf falls, not one blade of grass bends, not one car crash happens, not one drop of water spills without Creator's permission. So even though you have free will, and say you are not you're not aligned with Creator's will, you're plodding along and you want to be an actress, you want to be famous, and so you're doing everything. You're going to move to LA, you're taking classes, you are going to all the auditions and trying to get an agent and getting your photos and da 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 da. You're working on it, it's your free will. It's not going to happen unless Creator agrees to it. Now, just because it's allowed and Creator it allows it to happen, doesn't mean that it's for your highest good. It could mean it's happening because there's a lesson involved, and you're not on your purpose, you're not on what God's will is, but because you're stumbling around doing something with a different purpose, you could very well be getting the things that you want, but that is for you to learn from. So all of that doesn't answer any question about aligning yourself with free will and God's will. But I think that those are all things that we have to have in the back of our mind as we're talking about this topic. Where you're coming from, what you're attached to, and what your purpose is. Like, what are your actions and your thoughts and your plans? What are they aligned with? So God has this will, this plan collectively for the universe to be advancing, to be expanding, ever growing, ever lightening, always going towards the light. And it unfolds and unfolds and unfolds and unfolds infinitely. So from a big picture, we can be connected with that and working towards that and aligning ourselves with that. As an individual, same. I can be aligning myself with that, with accompanying with how am I doing that? What am I doing to advance the universe? Because every light, you remember that, about hiding your light under a bushel basket? Is that in the Bible? I don't know where that came from. To the degree that you're hiding your light, your true light, again, not being famous or powerful, but your true light, to the degree that you're hiding your true light, you're minimizing yourself. And to the degree that you allow yourself to shine for the right reasons, then your purpose is going to unfold for you. So now you are somebody who has chosen to align themselves with their soul, with their eternal being, and are not caught up in doing things because they want a better house. Nothing wrong with wanting a better house, but if that's your end all, be all, end all, if that's your goal, your final goal, I got to have the X house with so many bedrooms and so much land and so many trees and blah blah blah. If that's your end goal, as opposed to that's something that you would like, but you're not going to fall apart if you don't have it. So I'm making plans and I'm going along. And if I allow myself to be okay with not getting that house, I think there's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to fall apart if you don't get the house, or are you okay with not getting the house if that's your thing? But going along with what allowing what is going to happen, and the same time driving yourself forward. You have to make action, right? You can't say, well, this is God's will and this is my fate and it's just going to happen. Because you have to do something. And if God's will doesn't happen in this lifetime, it's okay. God isn't going to fall apart. Creator isn't going to fall apart. It doesn't affect the universe in any way of stopping anything. Yeah, that little cog is not. But because we're infinite, which infinite, remember, well, we haven't talked about in this series, but infinity goes forward and backwards and up and down and left and right. And there's no, like, it's always now. So if in this drop in the ocean isn't fulfilling its purpose, isn't aligning itself, aligning its will, the ocean knows that, but the ocean still exists and still flows, and the sea animals still live in it, but that drop is a little off. Is that a good start?
That's a great start.
All right.
You know,
any questions?
Yeah, a lot. Something that comes up for me based on your explanation of taking a walk, using your will to decide to take a walk, but then allow, right, for what happens on that walk. How do we know when a door shutting in our life, an experience, is a path we're not meant to follow? Or is it a situation where we need to persevere and keep trying and trying and trying? There are numerous examples of each. This door was shut over and over and over because I'm not meant to go down that path.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you needed to persevere. You needed to keep at it harder. Mm-hmm. How in the world do you discern between those two?
I think, you know me, so you know I've had that struggle, and I kept going, oh,
we all.
If it's gonna happen, it's just gonna But if you have that feeling, like for myself, I'm like, I just know I can't give up. I think you have to sit with yourself, and this is where the exploration of self becomes. This is an example, another aspect in which exploration of self is so important. You have to sit with yourself. You have to get to know yourself. I mean, goodness, really, how many people do we know? Any of us, you can name off a dozen people right off the top of your head that you know, that you're aware of, that seemingly are so unself-aware. And the hope is that someday they will, but for us in this conversation, following this path, self-awareness is so crucial. So you are striving for X career or X position. You want to be VP and you want to be in this career, whatever it is. You're a scientist or something. I don't know, whatever you are, engineer. I don't know. It doesn't matter. If the doors keep on closing, are you checking in with yourself and going, is this truly what I want? Or is this just me being stubborn because I have this idea in my head and I have to keep doing it? This is when I, in college, I took a philosophy class, as an extra, just to use up points or whatever, get credits. And, he wasn't that much. I was older in college, and he wasn't terribly older than me. So it was kind of an interesting class for a lot of reasons. But anyway, I remember he shared this story that from the age of 11, he knew he wanted to be an attorney. And he did everything from age 11. He did everything. Read the books, organized his classes, did everything with that goal in mind. That is what he wanted to do. And he did it. And he was in law school. And same as me, he took philosophy as a GE. And in his philosophy course, he realized that he loved philosophy. He loved it, which was kind of at odds with his whole being an attorney thing. And he came to realize and recognize, wait a minute, do I want to spend the rest of my life based on the decision of an 11-year-old? Or do I want to go forward in my life based on the decision that I'm making now? So often I think we have to really think about, why are you banging your head against the wall?
Mm.
You know, are you being stubborn? Is it because your parents want you to? Is it because you think you need to make X amount of money? Maybe the doors are closing because you have to work harder, because you're not quite on target. You need to go move a little to the left, over to the right. The timing isn't coming to fruition yet. Or maybe they're closing because that's really not the door you're supposed to be trying to get into. And the only way to tell is from yourself. Prayer and meditation. Not because mom said, not because you promised somebody, not because of any of that. You have to do what is right and true for you.
Well, I think that's one of the hardest things that we face now as people in general, is learning how to listen to our own selves, because we're always looking for the answer outside of us. So, you were saying be self-aware, and it's like, well, I understand what that means now, but 10 years ago, I wouldn't have known what you meant by that, but I was always looking for approval. I wanted everybody to like me. And I had a hard time making a decision for myself, and it's been such a progression, a lot of stumbles and falls and backward steps and like sideways and, but always, eventually forward, in understanding that, I need to decide for myself from here.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you talk a little bit about what that has meant for you? Like, would you want to go back to not being self-aware? How does it feel to be more self-aware?
There are days, absolutely, I would like to not be self-aware. I'd like to have somebody make all my decisions for me, because they're just so hard, But in truth, no, absolutely not. I think that my relationship with Creator is stronger, and that feels very good. It's ultimately, even though all the decisions have to come from me, there's nobody telling me what to do, nobody guiding me, for the most part. I mean, it's not like I don't ever ask my friends for their opinions, but it's freeing, and it is, it weighs a little heavy sometimes, because when I choose something that might not have actually been for the best, then I bear that responsibility, So, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, but at the end of the day, it feels good. It's very freeing. It's like, I know that today I did the best that I could based on my own decisions, on my heart, and it's my heart. So, if I'm doing something, it's because I want to, not because somebody thinks I should. And I don't have that pressure of trying to meet somebody else's expectations or live their life. I'm living my life.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that ultimately, that's the ultimate free will, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we're living our lives for other people, when we're living our lives shut down, where's your free will?
Right.
Yeah.
That's where it gets really complex and difficult to understand, because I can think of so many decisions in my life where I walked my own path. I did what was in my heart. It was not the norm by any stretch of the imagination. And then I think I know what you're going to say already. The outcome often was sometimes painful, which led me to conclude, oh, that was a wrong decision. And decisions even with consultation with the family, prayer and meditation, material analysis. And we all felt, yes, this is the right thing to do. The feedback we got from prayer and meditation, yes, this is what we're supposed to, this is the path we're supposed to take, and then disaster. And you do have to, it does kind of lead you to conclude, well, I didn't read that right. I didn't read that feedback correctly. So what is that? What is that?
Okay. So, and we have talked about this, and without, going into details on these sessions that Shelly and I have had, seemingly it looks disastrous, but when we check in with Source, and the answers would come back to her that it was actually a good thing, and she's like, "What? No, that can't be. No, that's not a good." But Creator tests the ones he loves, right? We're always building that spiritual muscle, and these things that came back that for her, Shelly, and her family that felt disastrous, when we looked at it from an eternal perspective rather than an earthbound perspective, it turns out to be very, very powerful stuff. And the navigation through it, yes, was a lot of stumbling and scraped knees and tears and confusion, but brought strength out and brought understanding out. So, so sometimes these things that, we do it and it feels like, well, where did I go wrong? No, he didn't go wrong. And earlier, one of the questions or something, it came to my mind, the story of, I was getting mixed up, Jonah and Job, maybe both of them had all the disasters. I know Jonah was in the fish or in the whale or whatever he was, but didn't Job have one disaster after another? And I think the biblical purpose there, what that teaches us is, because it wasn't that the Creator was strengthening him, giving him that he loved him, and that's why he did those things. That's why those things happened, to deepen his connection with Source. So sometimes it feels like it's wrong, but actually it's super right.
So you're talking about letting go. It's natural as a human to assume painful outcome, that was a bad choice, that was a wrong decision, but that's not necessarily true from the spiritual understanding.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome then? You can, as you've lived enough of life and you've experienced this, I think you can become a little more paralyzed. Like, well, I thought I was on the right track when I did that, and this would be well, what do I do now? What do I trust? How do I connect and trust? What is the next best step to take?
Yeah. It's a matter of, so even when you're in the experience of the tears and the frustration and how am I, my family, my neighborhood, how are we going to get out of this mess, right? Or this seeming mess. There's a part of you that's there. But if you allow a part of you, maybe the observer part of you, to go, I wonder what that's about. And, isn't that funny? That's actually kind of funny when you think about it, that I did this, I turned left and the tree fell right. And that's not a good example, but I like to do that for myself. I find that is a huge step for me over the years of into being in the moment, instead of like being flustered about what went wrong. I'm like, well, isn't that interesting? I wonder. Being in a state of I wonder what that was about. I wonder why that person was mean to me. I wonder what that was about. I wonder why that fell down. I wonder, and simultaneously with that, I'm pretty clumsy. Not as clumsy as I was, but I'm pretty clumsy. So like I turn my elbow and my drink falls over or something. But there's so many times when there's like a close call, like I'll bump it and I'll be like, oh boy, but then it rights itself. And I'll say, oh, thank you. And it's not, I don't think about it. It just automatically comes out, oh, thank you. I almost hit a tree. I don't think I ever hit a tree, or almost hit a tree, but say I could have hit something, or a car came out or whatever, and it doesn't happen. Oh, thank you. So being in that space of the moment and appreciating that this is all a journey and it is all a process, instead of like getting caught up in like, oh, this moment, oh, this is a positive moment. This is not a positive moment. It's all a positive moment because it's all a learning and a growth. And instead of getting caught up in fear and sadness and woulda, shoulda, coulda, and all of that stuff that we're so good at doing.
Yeah.
You talk about this a lot, and I think you just said it again. You're talking about the power of a paradigm shift and thinking differently about things. And we're kind of exposing, I think, at least in our American culture, that there is a belief here that pain is bad. And if you're doing the right thing, everything will be working out okay, successfully, etc. So it's kind of making that belief bare, but that's not a spiritual truth.
Right. And again, there's nothing wrong with having a comfortable life, with having a home, having a home and the roof doesn't leak, and you have enough food, and you have enough relaxation time, and you have sufficient social interaction. What's sufficient social interaction for me is different than what's for somebody else. I don't need a lot, but I have enough. I have what I need. So all those things are wonderful. There's nothing wrong with having your needs met. The point is, are you living your life stumbling with your goal of this world? Everybody makes their own choices. And I'm not, if you choose to do some of these things I'm going to talk about, that I'm not, well, I do find it a little odd, but that's where I'm coming from. Like trying to make yourself look young. Okay. If you're not 20, you're not 20. I mean, it just is. And I understand, women, we've been kind of told that we're supposed to look good. We're supposed to da-da-da-da-da. But allowing yourself to be who you are and not trying to be or look who are you kidding? You're trying to fool somebody into thinking you're something else. We have to all be ourselves. Or the guy who spends his whole paycheck on a fancy car, so he drives around in a fancy car, but really doesn't have any money. If that's not being yourself. So again, there's nothing wrong with having that fancy car. And there's nothing wrong if you want to spend all your money on the car. But if it's keeping you off of your true eternal purpose of who you are as a spiritual being, because you're focused on projecting that you are materially well off, those are two different things.
I get that. Authenticity is not something another thing that we're not really taught, that how important that is to be your own self and not worry about fitting in necessarily. It's like my whole grade school life was like, you had to, if you wanted to be anybody, you had to be like them,
I know. And so that, and then getting back to what Shelly was said about a pain, like we think that we shouldn't have sadness, and we want our kids not to suffer like we suffered. And I know for myself, and Shelly and I have had this conversation, and I don't remember if you were in that conversation with us, Wendi, but that all those things of the difficulties in childhood, although while I was there, I mean, when I was little, I probably didn't realize how different we were and what things were. But as I started realizing how I didn't fit in at all, wasn't able to really make friends, and the friends I did make turned out to be not authentic. Love that word. But all those things that in the moment when, as a young person, that I struggled with, now I wouldn't trade them for anything. My mother, I would have given anything to have a different mother. But now I am so grateful for my mother. She was just exactly what I needed. So when I chose her, I did a good job. That's what I really wanted. And then I've come to recognize, oh, yeah, no, that was the mom for me. Because all those things, I mean, anyway, I could spend the whole session just talking about my mom.
So how much of our life is ours to direct?
Well, again, that whole you're born, you die, right? And the period in between is yours, free to make whatever decisions you make. And it's all about how you do it. We could, all of us, be on the exact same path, crossing the same bridge, walking up the same road, looking at the same trees, having the same choices, but we're not having the same experience. Because my inner work sets me up to experience that in a completely different way than you having your own inner work, where you are with your experience of the exact same thing. It's different because you are where you are. So how much is mine? It's, again, I think that to the degree that I align myself with a spiritual purpose, and then my purpose is aligned more with creators. But the more I allow and be okay with how it goes, then my free will, and I'm just having this thought, like, yeah, they're saying, yeah, this thing about free will, it's not so much about what college do I go to, who do I get married to. You have the free will to be happy. You have the free will to be a joyful being in any circumstance.
Wow.
Any circumstance.
That's
You
powerful.
have free will.
That is powerful.
That's really powerful.
Thank you.
What holds us back from doing that spiritually? How do we get there?
Well, we've all seen where society has led us these days. And it is built, and it's getting more, and we are more and more and more, further and further away as a society from true goodness, really. We have to remember who we are. We have to remind ourselves that, and don't listen to what everybody else is telling you. That you have to get this car, you have to do whatever. You have to find for yourself. You have to treat this world as temporary, because for you, it is. Even if this world goes on for billions of years, your time here is temporary. Treat it like it's temporary. Don't treat it like it's a permanent thing, because it's not. And the more you do it, the more we raise our children to do it, the more we have that understanding and show them how to make good decisions. There's someone in my life who is financially struggling. And I'm like, why didn't you, like when this all started, why didn't you sell the fancy house and the fancy cars and the fancy this and the fancy that? Get a smaller house or in a less expensive neighborhood. Why didn't you make some changes? Because now it's even worse because it is. Because all these years of, and they said because they didn't want their children to know. And I said, so basically what you're doing is teaching your children how to live a lie. That could have been a great opportunity when things started falling apart to make those changes and to explain to the children, this is life. This is what's going on. And we need to make some good decisions here. Why would you not want them to be aware of problems? Because chances are when they grow up, they're going to have a problem. And how are they going to handle it? We all have setbacks in our life. We all have decisions that we have to make. This fell apart, that fell apart. This isn't going how we want it to go. How do we handle it? Just full blast ahead and pretend like nothing's going on? Sometimes that's the right way, but sometimes it's not.
So if we can do what you're talking about, what are we truly capable of becoming?
I have no idea. It's too big. We are too big. Remember that quote about there's no such, we have no limitations. I don't even know what that, I thought about that when I first read that quote. I'm like, what does that even mean? I have it written here. Something from the, blot out from the hearts of men all suggestions of limitations. I don't even know what that means. What would that be like to not have limitations?
But how does that fit with the fact that there are limitations, that we can't go outside of divine will?
Well, I would interpret that that quote as being within divine will, limitations, because I mean, it being within God's will, within Creator's will, within the universe is a given. There's no getting out of it. You can't go someplace where the universe isn't, where you can't go anywhere where the Creator isn't. That's a given. It is within the universe, and so that limitation is, you can't be bigger than Creator. That's just not going to happen. But for us to have trust and understanding that we are something amazing, that we live for eternity. We have always lived, we always will live, we will always existed. That's mind-boggling. Like, how do you wrap your head around that? I have always existed. I always will exist. I'm never going to not exist. Well, what does it mean to not exist? So I don't think. Will I know I don't exist? I mean, these are all things that are really kind of beyond our earthly understanding. But we can acknowledge them and know that I'm an eternal being and know that I have limitless possibilities, and at the same time accept that I don't understand it right now. Those two things can coexist.
That really makes me wonder how our thoughts, which are limited by our language, limits our understanding, our growth, our ability to transform. What can we do to break out of the reality that we've been raised in?
Now, interesting that you say that, because, whenever when I'm communicating with Source, not that I never get words. I do get words, especially like Anyway, I do get words. I do get smells. I get colors. I get views. Like I'll see their house or their parents or a scene from their childhood or whatever. But that's a small fraction of the communication that with source, because that communication is without words. It's not limited by yours. And what I'm limited in is how I can, whether I'm working with one individual or a group of people, to translate something that doesn't have words into words. And you've probably all heard me say, like, okay, I'll say a bunch of descriptors and it feels like this and this, and then you put all that in the blender and then you kind of have an idea of what I'm trying to say, because we don't have those words. So yeah, if we are limiting ourselves by being in our heads with our words, rather than being in our hearts and in our bellies with feelings. And feelings, yes, you can have some words for your feelings, but you can't really like express verbally a feeling. Like I can say, I love you. My younger son used to always have this thing, when at nighttime, it would go on forever. I love you more. No, I love you more. Oh, I love you as big as the ocean. I love you as big as I love you, blah, 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 blah. And then he'd always say, I love you as many stars there are. And I would say, oh, yep, I can't beat you there. Yeah, that was always how we ended it. But the point is, because I love that child bigger than any star. But I can't put it into words how I feel. I feel it and I can say words, but it doesn't touch it. I mean, there are some people that are gifted in that way and they can express things. But when you read a beautiful poem or a part of a book or something that moves you, you're not sitting in the words, you're sitting in the feelings. So perhaps, Shelly, to your question, try to, have an adventure. Get out of your head in the words. Shelly.
What?
And explore the feelings.
That's beautiful. It makes me wonder if we'll ever communicate that way. Are we going to evolve to communicating in a way that is beyond language one day?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times when it's happening now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and more than we probably recognize. So pay attention. Like, just pay attention. And don't go, oh, that was just a coincidence. Remember what Einstein said, coincidence is simply God's way of remaining anonymous. It's not, it is a coincidence if you recognize that it's creator driven. If you want to call a creator driven action coincidence, go ahead. But it's a co-incidence, two things happening together. Has nothing to do with it being random.
So then, most importantly, how do we figure that out? I keep seeing this image from Finding Nemo with the turtles trying to get into the current, into the stream, How do we co-create with God, with the divine? How do you find your true spiritual path? How do you know when you're off of it? How do you get into that slipstream? How do you do that?
Shelly, we got 4 minutes left before we go into our healing piece. And you want me to answer all those questions? Can you give me just one?
How? I feel, to me, they are one question, right? Because being in the stream or out of the stream, it's the same question.
Okay, so the question is how to get in the stream. Okay.
You get in that place where you are walking that spiritual path and you're co-creating with the divine, you're really fulfilling your purpose.
Okay.
Oh.
No.
That seems to be the theme of our show. It comes up so much.
As you said, you can go off the path. You can pursue things that creator does not have in mind for you, and so those will not be allowed for you. Like trying to be a movie star, right? Or an Olympic gymnast. For some people it's meant to be, for some people it's not. So then how do you not get stuck? You can allow, but you may not be going in the right direction. How do you get in alignment?
But that's what we talked about before. Self-awareness. Why are you pursuing that? If it just feels true, then keep going.
But there are people. Sorry.
But just bear in mind, though, even though you're pursuing it, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. It might be right for you to pursue it, but it may not be meant for you to achieve.
Right.
But if it doesn't feel right, I mean, honestly, if it doesn't feel right, not again, you get out of our stubborn heads. If it genuinely doesn't feel right, then don't do it. Look for what is the right thing. And you may not get the answer to that today, but you can take steps to let go of outcome. Yes, thank you. You can start saying, okay, well, maybe, so using the actor example, maybe I can still be in this field. Maybe I could be a cameraman. Maybe I could be in marketing. Maybe I could be the hairdresser. Maybe you were close, but not quite where you needed to be. Explore, allow things to flow. Just look around. Give yourself opportunities. And be okay. All these things, we get so stressed out about this and that, and there are times today I've been working the last month getting all these pieces to try to get one package, and there's all these different pieces I had to get together, and I've been going like crazy to get there. And today I got it done, and so it feels really good. Sometimes we do have periods of time where we are kind of like overwhelmed. It does happen. But don't let it like become your lifestyle. Sometimes you have a deadline, you have this or whatever going on. But so we can get in our place of being like, I was in fear for the first 45 years of my life. That was 45, yeah, roughly. That's not a good place to be. You're not accomplishing anything, really. And your cortisol is all out of whack, and you're stressing yourself out. And again, it's not going to make me die 1 minute sooner than I'm supposed to, but it is going to make the quality of my life not as good as if I would take care of myself.
Well, I think this seems to me to be another, I don't know if dichotomy is the right word, but free will and allowing. It's just like help, but don't enable. Serve, but take care of yourself. There's a lot of these kind of opposing ideas that we have to find the right balance. And it's not always really clear or easy to discern what that is.
In scripture, I wish I could find it again. I don't remember what book it was. But I ran across a passage saying that scripture, that there is a dichotomy in scripture. Like you'll read something that says, always wear yellow, and then somewhere else it says always wear red. And that can be very frustrating. You're like, well, wait a minute. I read somewhere else that it said this. Now it's saying this. Which one is true? And the quote that I wish I could remember where I saw it, said that is intentional. That for us to think about it and find a way to allow and accept that both things are true. So what those examples that you just gave, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can reside together. They can both be true. And you just kind of wiggle through it and make them both be true.
I actually love that. That's a beautiful way of thinking about it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. All right. It's 7:53.
Are you going to give us our most important takeaway in this topic?
You are an eternal being. You are an eternal being. Sit with that and let the dice fall where they fall. Is that the right? Let the something fall where they fall. Is it dice?
Chips fall where they may.
Chips. Let the chips fall where they fall. Apparently, I haven't been going. I need to go gambling or something to figure out my quotes. Okay. How about you guys? Anything want to share? What you got out of it or anything?
I think that it's pretty cool how 3 weeks in a row, everything comes back to allow.
Mm.
I did also feel like I just kept getting the feeling that, if we can work towards less division and more love, like even loving the people that kind of give you the shivers to think that maybe love them. Ew. If we can get to the point where, we just see everybody as a soul rather than as the villain or the good guy, that would get us ahead leaps and bounds in all of the things.
Nice. Very nice. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, there's something huge in
Wait.
that.
That comment was just,
Yeah.
It just posed. Read it.
If you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all.
Now that's something to ponder.
Yeah.
That's
Well
something.
said.
Yep. So, okay, Shelly, what were you going to say?
Oh, no, I think what you started with, the idea that make your choices, exercise your free will, and then allow. It is this idea that a certain outcome is what determines the worth or goodness of your choice. That is not the correct way of thinking, I think. That's a different way of being in the world.
Yeah.
Make a choice and move forward, and then be okay with whatever it is.
Yeah.
And try and learn and grow from it. That's huge.
All right. Yay. We're all growing so much, all these things that we get to learn. All right. So we have a few minutes left. Let's do our healing portions. So we're simply allowing the energy to flow through us, and I'll probably just, when I'm done sending it, or I will say goodbye and disconnect. But that doesn't mean that you're done receiving it. So as long as you feel it and want to allow it to pass, to permeate through you, Just stay in the moment. Just stay with it. Just, even though the video is stopped. And by the way, all these videos, even the ones that are like 10 years old, you can go back and receive the energy. It's still there. How that is, I don't know. You'd have to ask Creator because it's beyond me. All right, let me say a prayer real quick.
And while she's doing that, let me just say that we want to thank you for joining us. If you feel inspired at all by this topic, please feel free to comment and let us know if you've got any suggestions for other things that you'd like us to talk about. We appreciate you and love you so very much.
And subscribe.
Yes, and subscribe.
All right, here we go. One of you, either on now or watching this later, somebody, and maybe more than one somebody, is going to feel overwhelmed and like you're going to fall over. Just go ahead and gently lie down. It's okay. Something is just shifting for you. Allow. All right, lovelies. See you next time.